Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is dry-aged T-bone steak with umami butter. Well, every once in a while you come across a truly special steak, and that's exactly what we're cooking up today. See, Creekstone Farms hooked us up with this beautiful 110-day dry-aged T-bone. And if you know anything about dry aging, the longer that beef dry ages, the beefier it gets and the funkier it gets. Now, instead of stopping there, we decided to take it all the way over the top today by making a compound butter that's infused with umami flavors. So everything from Parmesan to miso paste, some Worcestershire, which has got that anchovy in it, and shiitake mushrooms. And by infusing all of these umami flavors into the butter, the fat itself coats your mouth and just gives you this flavor explosion. Now, you don't need a unicorn of a steak like we're cooking today to enjoy the umami butter. You can put this on any steak you're cooking up and you're gonna love it. But before we get into the food itself, let's go fire up the grill. Now, today we're cooking on the Kamado Joe Kettle Joe, and we're gonna be doing a reverse sear on these big T-bones. So we gotta start this out with a smoking setup and just get the lump charcoal rolling. We're gonna do the Chef Eric Gephardt little cabin building method here. We don't need a ton of charcoal for this, so we're gonna start with just a base around our fire starter. And we're gonna build on top of that, and build a house around the fire starter. And then we'll end up with a relatively small charcoal bed that we can add some smoke to for smoking. So we're just gonna build around here now. Put some of these longer pieces on top. And we'll add a few around the outside. All right, so let's just leave this lid open for a minute here while this gets going, and then we'll close the lid up and open the airflow all the way. So now we're gonna pop on the slow roller attachment for the kettle. I'll leave our grates off for now so we can add some wood here in a little bit, but we'll close the lid up. And I'm just gonna pop the top off for now and make sure the bottom's all the way open. Yep. Now while the grill's heating up, we're gonna put together this umami butter. So we're gonna start by grating down some Parmesan really fine. We're just gonna need a couple tablespoons. And each one of these umami-rich ingredients that we're adding, we're gonna be combining with our half cup of unsalted butter. And to start with that butter, a little soft is a good idea. So next we're gonna be adding a tablespoon each of red miso paste and Worcestershire sauce, which has a couple of umami-rich ingredients, including anchovies and molasses. And then our final bit of umami flavor is gonna come from some dried shiitake mushrooms. We just wanna break these down into a powder that we can work into our butter. This is also gonna be 1 tablespoon of our shiitake powder. The rest you can save for soups and sauces. Now we're gonna add a very simple bit of seasoning here with our Cattleman's Lone Star brisket rub, salt, pepper, garlic, celery seed, and that's it. So this you just want to mix completely, and once everything's mixed in there, that's all there is to it. I'm going to leave this out at room temperature for our recipe today. There's a lot of good flavor. Man, you're going to save some of that extra from toast and eggs in the morning. I'm getting excited about this. All right, our charcoal's really taken off. We're looking at about 400 on the dial, which is obviously above where we want to be for smoking, but we haven't put our deflector in, so that's just fine. I'm gonna drop a chunk of pecan wood right there on top of the hot spot, and then we're gonna close down this grill to stabilize the temperature around 250, 225, somewhere in that range. Get our deflector on. We can go ahead and line up our grates as well. Put that chimney cap back on, and we'll close that down to about that first hash mark. We'll close that to about 2 fingers wide. So here we have our dry aged T-bones, 110 days. That's a long age, and you can smell it on there. It's got some really beautiful funkiness to it. The flavor is going to be super concentrated. These will cook quicker than a fresh steak. And the T-bone itself, you know, it's a cool cut. It's essentially the same. It's got the strip loin on one side and the tenderloin on the other side, but this comes from the front end of the cow versus the porterhouse, which is essentially the same cut, just with a little bit more of that tenderloin on it. So we're just throwing a little bit of Worcestershire sauce on here to get our seasoning to stick. And once again, for the seasoning, keeping it pretty simple with our Cattleman's Lone Star, salt, pepper, garlic, and celery seed. Just give that a good press to make sure it's sticking. We'll go ahead and hit the sides as well. And these can kind of just hang out and rest until our grill is ready. We've got that temperature stabilized and the smoke is rolling. All right, this smoke is rolling. It's looking really nice. We're gonna throw on our T-bones. We'll stick in a couple of our fireboard probes so we can kind of keep track of how the cook is progressing. Because we're aiming for about 100 degrees internal before we take these off and crank up the heat underneath for a nice sear to finish. Well, the steak's been on for about 40 minutes now. You can see we're right in that 100 degree range. Oh yeah, these are taking on some smoke for sure. We can tell because of the way the color's changed around the edges there. So we're gonna finish these off now. Like I said, we're doing the reverse sear method, so we're gonna take these off and let them rest. Then we're just gonna rest these while we crank up the heat on the Kettle Joe and put a little bit of foil on them so we don't lose much heat. We're gonna get rid of the slow roller altogether. Now we definitely got some life left in these coals. They certainly have not burned all the way down, but I am gonna bank them to one side so we can have a really high heat direct grilling zone on one half of the grill. And we'll go ahead and add just a little bit more wood, which is gonna give us some flame and put a little bit of color on the meat. So we wanna lower this back all the way down, we'll close it up. Once again, we're gonna take the chimney cap off just to get as much airflow as possible. Open it wide open at the bottom as well. All right, so we've given it about 5 minutes now. We're gonna get our grate positioned pretty far down, right up against those coals and a little bit of that wood. And then our T-bones right over that direct heat. All right, you guys can see that the fat's starting to come out of these now, which means we're getting quite a bit more flame, which is also going to equate to color. Oh yeah, that is a pretty sear. Look at the way that fat is foaming up on the surface there too. So we're gonna take these right up to about 120, 125. We'll let them rest to finish. All right, we got a little more flame than we need, so we're gonna move these off to indirect to finish here. But we've got some great color on them, and that's what we're going for. Let's check our internals here. We're right in that 125, 120, 125 range, so these won't need much more time. All right, let's pull these guys off. We'll give them just a little bit of time to rest before we slice into them. So when you bring these in from the grill, you just want to put a little bit of that umami butter down on your plate. You're going to put your T-bone on top and a little bit more of that butter on top of the steak and just let it kind of melt into the steak as it rests. All right, so this has had a good 5+ minutes to sit and rest. What we're going to do here is we're going to take each cut of meat off the side of the bone here, starting with the tenderloin. And then the strip, just cutting right alongside that bone. And then each one of these will slice up. Let's take a look at the color here in the middle. Oh yeah, just really gentle pink center. Still see some juices running through there. That's one of the things about dry aged meats, you know, is that a lot of that moisture evaporates out, so you want to be really careful not to overcook it. But this is looking really beautiful. The good news is anything, maybe any steak that you cook might lack in juice, which not a concern here, but that compound butter on top is going to make up for it. All right, so let's move that strip off, and we'll do a little tenderloin. Still got the juices, but dry aging and then the umami butter on this is going to add so much flavor to a cut that actually just doesn't have a ton of flavor. All right, so we're going to go back to the plate now. I grilled up a little bit of asparagus, just tossed in olive oil and some California tri-tip seasoning. For a really beautiful presentation, we'll place this bone back here. Put your strip back where it belongs. And the same with your tenderloin. And don't try to eat this by yourself. All right, let's get a taste. Oh my goodness. It's so good it's thundering here now. It really is that good. It's such a unique flavor when a steak is dry aged that long. You get the funkiness of like a blue cheese sort of. Not so much moldy, just a little funky. The beefiness is so concentrated. And then that crisp on the outside. I mean, wow. I just bit into the fat. Pure flavor explosion. I think this umami butter is delicious, but it may be better served on a fresher steak, because on top of the beautiful, sorry, I'm gonna try this tenderloin while I'm talking about it. On top of the beautiful dry aged flavor of the steak, it's just more umami. And honestly, that's what we're going for here, right? We're going over the top umami bomb. It's downright delicious. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoy the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.